Live in Western Oregon, this is NBC 16 News at 5.
The state budget forecast is in, and while the new figures don't show the $3 billion shortfall we were expecting, the numbers are still not looking good. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Jacqueline Mazer. Well, Oregon is in a severe recession, the deepest on record dating back to 1939. That's according to state economists who say the state budget forecast is projected to have a shortfall of $2.7 billion this current biennium until next year's budget period. So this means state agencies are bracing for a deficit. One agency, Oregon State Police. OSP says one way to save money is to cut staff and close some small stations. Captain Tim Fox says this could be a major blow to state troopers, as Oregon already has some of the lowest trooper staffing in the country.
I mean, we lose almost 500 people a year to fatal traffic crashes. I think that's a big number. That could be a public health problem. That that could be, the argument could be made. We need more money to maybe bring that number down.
However, there is still work being done to try and maintain state agencies and fill the gap. Oregon has $1.6 billion reserve funds and some excess cash. Governor Kate Brown is also calling on Congress and the president to provide more assistance. Many agencies are also waiting for state lawmakers to go into a special session to discuss the impacts of the deficit to state programs. Well, now to the latest results from several races in Oregon's primary election. 46% of registered Oregon voters returned a ballot, according to the Secretary of State's office. That's more than 1.3 million ballots received. So let's break up the results of some key races. Joe Ray Perkins is currently leading for the Republican nomination for the U.S. Senate race in November with 50%. He's followed by Paul J. Romero Jr. with 31%. The winner will run against Senator Jeff Merkley in November. Art Robinson was voted in as the Republican nominee for the 2nd State Senate District, beating Jolie Wallace. He'll face Melissa Cribbins in November in a race to replace outgoing State Senator Herman Bertschiger Jr. Robinson ran against Peter DeFazio 5 times without success for the District 4 congressional spot. And moving on to the 4th Congressional District, Representative Peter DeFazio will be going against Republican Alex Skarlatos for the congressional race in November, as both have a big lead. DeFazio has 98% of the vote and Skarlatos has 86%. DeFazio is the incumbent and has represented the 4th District since 1987. He's also the chair of the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. In the 5th Congressional District, Democrat Kurt Schrader has a big lead with 70% of the vote. Republican Amy Ryan Cowser also has a big lead with 53%. Both are also likely to face off in the congressional race in the November general election. Well, turning to the race for Secretary of State in Oregon, Democrat Mark Hass and Shemia Fagan have a very close race with only a couple of votes making a difference. As you can see, it's still too early to call a winner in this race. Now, as for the Republican side, 2 candidates are in that race, Dave Stauffer and Kim Thatcher. Thatcher leads with 86% of the votes. It appears Thatcher will face the winner of the Democratic race. Well, back here locally, Lucy Vinnis is reelected for Eugene Mayor. Vinnis, who is the incumbent, was up against 7 other candidates. In this race, if a candidate receives 50% of the vote, they win outright. With over 2/3 of the vote, Vinnis will not face a runoff in November. Now, the race for mayor in the city of Springfield was also on the ballot. Christine Lundberg is the winner with 57% over Mike Eister. Lundberg has served in that position since 2010. Here in Lane County, a $121 million bond measure to fund structural and technological improvements at Lane Community College has passed, with nearly 58% voting in favor. President Margaret Hamilton says the bond measure would be used to improve safety on campus, including seismic upgrading of buildings. It would also create new classrooms for healthcare and manufacturing programs. Hamilton says this is a huge victory, saying despite high unemployment and financial uncertainty caused by the pandemic, the public decided to support education.
I'm extremely appreciative to the voters for putting their faith in their community college. It was a wonderful feeling, and as I said, it was very humbling to know that these folks support this college so much.
The measure applies a property tax of 12 cents a year for every $1,000 of property residents own. Based on the median home value in Lane County for 2019, that would be about $35 a year. And for a full recap of the Oregon primary and to read more about the winners, make sure to visit our website, NBC16.com.
Definitely a cool day all across western Oregon with the thick cloud coverage, but slightly on the drier side today as opposed to the past several days. Managing to make it up into the upper 50s, low 60s for many of us across western Oregon for our highs. And there's that gloomy sky that remains overhead and will at least for one more day with the thick cloud coverage over the past several hours with a look at our radar and satellite. But the good news is pollen counts, trees now at low levels, grass at moderates. Expecting to see things ramp up as we inch closer to our weekend as drier air pushes in, but lows tonight into the 40s. Tomorrow looks to be one of our coolest days over the next week, but I'll have a detailed outline of just when we should see the return of the sun along with some warmer temperatures and my full forecast in just a few minutes.
All right, sounds good, Josh. Thank you. Well, college students are now returning to the internet to complete what would have been a traditional classroom setting. But with the pandemic, many students are now forced to move off campus and foot the bill for space they are no longer using. NBC 16's Stephanie Rothman is live in the studio tonight, sharing one student's struggle to pay rent. Stephanie.
Jacqueline, when students decided to live off campus, no one could have expected they would be faced with such a bad rent problem. Many feel it's unfair to pay full price when they're not even there anymore. One Western Oregon University student tells me while he decided to stay in his townhome, his roommates are scattered across the state, leaving much of the cost of living now up to him. Salvador Garcia Lopez tells us he's struggling like many others. Along with rent, he and his roommates need to cover utilities, garbage, and other costs, adding up while their jobs have been cut. Garcia Lopez says he's lucky to still have his university job to help out, but feels the responsibility is now on Governor Brown. He says he and others involved in the Oregon Student Association feel strongly that they should be offered some sort of relief during these times.
Paying for college is already hard enough, so having to add up on this an additional cost when most of our incomes are on the low is a struggle.
He asked his property management for some sort of rent relief, but they won't help. Everyone in his complex is expected to continue paying rent, and for many, that includes through the summer. We reached out to Western View Properties, which manages multiple locations in the Monmouth area. We've yet to hear back. Coming up next at 5:30, we'll hear what Garcia Lopez and other students propose the state should do to help. Jacqueline?
All right, thank you, Stephanie. Well, a local nonprofit is helping high school graduating seniors across the nation with some much-needed scholarships. The Nobel Peace Laureate Board of Directors will give away thousands of dollars worth of scholarships to college-bound seniors. The scholarship aims to highlight senior students who have shown interest and dedication to achieving peace through activities. Their goal is to encourage students to be accepting of others' beliefs now and throughout college.
And that's the main essence of what we're looking for in these students that are going to be going on to college, that they learn to accept people for their differences of opinion and that we respect that in everybody.
After receiving only a few applications, the nonprofit decided to extend their deadline to May 31st. For more details, you can head to nobelpeacelaureates.org. Coming up next on NBC 16 at 5, the CDC issues new guidance on reopening. What a 60-page report details on the roadmap for schools, restaurants, and childcare. Plus, Memorial Day is expected to see a record low in travel this year. What the CDC recommends if